here. You better watch this channel. You better watch all the videos. You better watch every single one right here at Good Mic Work Commentaries. Do it. Do it now.
Happy Monday night. What's going on, y'all? Welcome to your WWE Raw review for October 11th, 2021. Show just went off the air about 10 minutes ago. It's kind of a toss-up with me. I want to immediately get all of the feedback from you guys in the chat and give me your grades, A, B, C, or D, or 0 through 10, because I kind of have it. I feel like it's a mixture of a decent show combined with a very, very lackluster show. And some of that was their fault. Some of it wasn't. The crowd in San Francisco tonight did not do WWE a ton of favors. It was not a very full house. They were a little dead at times, or for most times, I should say. And you know, again, it's just an entire show filled with Smackdown people and jumbled up shit, and it really, really sort of, hinders the meaning of the draft when you just have everybody involved like this and all the shit, which I'm sure I will rant a little bit about later. But I suppose the matches themselves, the in-ring stuff was pretty good, especially on the men's side. Xavier and Ricochet was fun. We had fun Riddle and Orton stuff as usual. Shayna tore ass through her match as we expected. The main event was very good, filled with a lot of great action. But again, a lot of that typical drama that you see whenever you have baby faces with an upcoming title match. They always have to team up together to face a tag team. They did the same thing with them last week, and I predicted last week in their tag match that there would be miscommunication and they would push and shove and brawl. That didn't happen, but they ran it back this week, did the exact same thing except with a different team, and this time you had the miscue, you had the arguing, you had the fighting, and everything imploding between Big E and Drew McIntyre. So it was good, beefy, meaty men slapping meat, or whatever it is that Big E likes to say. All that stuff was fine, but just not a whole lot of creative integrity in anything that you see on these shows these days, and tonight was a pretty good example. I'm really curious to see what the ratings do tomorrow. I put up on Twitter that I'm predicting they're going to do 1.69 million. It just feels like what they're going to get. They got 1.8 something last week. I feel like they're going to dip down. This show was not wonderful, in my opinion. Maybe you guys will give it a better grade than me. I didn't think it was that great. Plus, they had Monday Night Football and playoff baseball to deal with in the ratings head-to-head. And lately, they've kind of been delivering some halfway decent Raws. And like I said during the hot-shotting of Big E's title win, I went on record right here on the podcast and said that I'm actually in favor with WWE just saying, fuck it, let's just throw everything we can at the fans, do whatever we can to make the show good. It certainly can't get any worse, and their booking can't make any less sense than it does now. So if you want to just throw SmackDown people on the show or whatever, I don't give a shit what you do. Just give us some decent wrestling to watch on Monday nights, please. So I don't want to try to be too hypocritical by saying I don't care what they do as long as the show is good, but yet at the same time complain that there are SmackDown people on Raw and shit like that. I normally wouldn't be complaining about that if the draft wasn't just last fucking week and they tattooed changes don't take effect until October 26th or 22nd, excuse me. They tattooed that on our brains repeatedly over and over, and then they just turn right around and just undo all of that. And I'm like, what the hell are you repeating this over and over for if it doesn't mean anything? So that's really kind of the only reason why I'm annoyed by this. If the draft wasn't even happening, then I'm like, yeah, fuck it, jumble all the talent up, who cares? But it's void of any sort of logic at all, and it's super annoying, and all that shit kind of bothered me tonight. But if it makes the matches better, if it helps advance a few storylines, like tonight, I think did with the Usos, them being there, planting seeds for future Roman matches and shit like that in the future with Big E or with Drew over on SmackDown. All that stuff was fine, and they helped really stir the pot between Big E and Drew. They're kind of, they're cool with each other. They did the really fun Mega Powers handshake tonight, but at the same time, you could tell that both of them are on thin ice with the other, and it ain't going to take much for that whole situation to break down. So Usos being out there to kind of stir up the issue between them and make the fans actually want to see this match between them at Crown Jewel. Tonight got a little uglier with the brawl at the end, and Drew, it looked like he got busted open hard way, but he still had some blood on his head, and that helped. I think that might help fuel the interest in this match a little bit. But in the end, I'm hoping that Drew is going to do the favor as a former WWE champion and as someone who was able to to defeat a lot of people who helped put him over. Let's do one for Big E here, since Bobby Lashley already did that. I think it's Drew's turn to take a loss here. Let Big E rack up some quality wins against former WWE champions to help solidify him as a legit champion. So, in the future, people don't question if he's really up there with the greatest or whatnot. You got to put him over. He's got to win matches. So I think Drew should do the honors at Crown Jewel. That's what I think is going to happen, but we'll see. I never want to predict anything in Saudi Arabia anymore. I was so sure of myself during that Fiend and Goldberg match, and look what happened. So nothing is off the table, but I feel like Big E dropping the belt to Drew as Drew heads over to SmackDown just wouldn't make any storyline sense at all. So hopefully it's just a good, solid win for for Big E, excuse me. Some interesting scores here. A, C- so far. I think those are the only ones I got so far. You think it was a good show? Who said that? D- from Marcus the Entertainer. Josh said Raw was so good. Yeah, probably going to be mixed reviews from a lot of you guys. I just don't think, the show did a whole lot for me. I was vaguely paying attention. I was eyeballing it. I wasn't watching every minute of every match, just basically writing down the results and the finishes and things like that. And, some of the other stuff that we saw with the promos and whatnot, it was a lot of typical stuff on Raw. So we'll see how they do. I'm really curious to see what kind of rating they pull in tomorrow. Something tells me it's not going to be great. We'll see if my 1.69 million turns out to be too generous or if they actually draw higher than that. We will find out tomorrow. But anywho, let me say hi to everybody that is here. Sex Machine, that makes two of us. Zane G, Kyle, Josh, JJ Leg, Atomic Cody, Jay Lambo, Justin Lowe, Marcus, Deshaun is here, Monkey Wrench, nice. Big J, Jet the Hawk, Charlie, Martin Can, Vash, Starwind is here, Sonic Plays, and Nathan. Or Mr. E, right on. It's a good start, I suppose. Go ahead and smash the little thumbs up button while you're here, if you don't mind. We're going to run through the results of Raw tonight. Then we will preview the entire Crown Jewel card, which I just had pulled up and then closed out without pasting them into my notes. So I will redo that, and we'll talk about the card here at the end of the show. And then next week, we will do predictions. So I'm guessing next week for Crown Jewel, we'll probably just do our predictions after the Raw review, I would assume. There's a chance I might come up here earlier and knock them out, but I don't think so. Unless I did a standalone video on Wednesday afternoon prior to Dynamite, I suppose I could do that. But I think next week on the Raw review, we will just do the Crown Jewel predictions after the show, since that will be the last main roster show until the pay-per-view, and the pay-per-view, of course, is a week from Thursday, so we will be up here on Thursday, October 21st, sometime after Crown Jewel. I'm not sure what the time here. It's 9 o'clock in the morning for me here on the West Coast, so after I watch the show, I might take a couple of hours before I actually come up and do a review on it, but I will be up here the day of Crown Jewel to give you guys a full review on this ridiculous shit in Saudi Arabia. So just kind of put that on your calendars. Also this week, no watch-along on Wednesday because Dynamite is on Saturday this week. So aside from some mic drops sprinkled along the channel tomorrow, Wednesday, or Thursday, I guess you're probably not going to hear from me again until Saturday on the Winged Eagle, I think. Although, no, I think we're going to do the Winged Eagle on Sunday. That was the plan. Fuck, I got to figure this out for you guys. I was also going to do a watch-along on Sunday, but we might not be doing a watch-along. We might be doing the podcast so we can talk about Smackdown, talk about Rampage. Smackdown, of course, has got that 2.5-hour show on FS1 that does go head-to-head. The final hour goes head-to-head with Rampage's, or the final half hour goes head-to-head with the first half hour of Rampage. So people are interested and curious to see what the ratings do on Friday. Might be kind of interesting. And then, of course, on Saturday, you have Dynamite. So the best time for me to come up here and do a podcast to talk about shit is probably Sunday. But then again, I'm going to be up here the next night doing a Raw review to talk Crown Jewel and stuff. It's probably going to be Sunday, but just that's why it's important to subscribe. Make sure you follow me on Twitter so you can keep track of all this nonsense. I'll let you guys know there what I plan on doing this week because the wrestling schedule's different, which means my personal schedule is going to be different. I'm not sure what the hell that's going to mean for the channel. But I'll be here talking about stuff, just not sure the exact date and time for you guys. Anyway, we'll start getting into Raw here 1 second. Colts and Ravens headed to overtime. No kidding, huh? Let me pull that box score up and just eyeball that. How about that John Gruden news? That shit went quick, didn't it? He's already out as Raiders head coach. in the wake of emails. Jesus Christ. And it ain't cancel culture. It's consequences culture. And that type of shit is just unacceptable. And he was out of there almost immediately upon the release of these emails. So Gruden is gone. That's crazy. And we've got Colts and Ravens heading to overtime, 25-25. Interesting. All right, cool. So that's what's going on in the worldwide world of sports or whatever. We'll get into Monday Night Raw now. So Raw tonight was in San Francisco. I don't know if it's still called the Oracle. I think it's where the Golden State Warriors play. Not much of a crowd tonight. If you noticed, the arena looked way less than half full. Now, generally, San Francisco isn't that big of a modern wrestling town. It was back in the day. You know, San Francisco was a hot territory back in the Cow Palace days and, Pat Patterson and shit like that. But nowadays, that audience plus that part of the country is probably a little bit more COVID conscious than deer shit, Alabama and other places like that. So it's probably a little bit less gathering. Plus, you got baseball on. You've got football on. As a matter of fact, I think the Giants and San Francisco Giants are playing in the playoffs. So there's a lot of distractions up there. There are excuses to why the building isn't that full. But WWE has been dealing with these type of attendance issues for years, way before COVID and way before AEW even came along. How many years have we been talking and going to shows and seeing shows with the entire upper deck tarped off? But yet WWE continuously has been running the major arenas where the professional basketball and professional hockey teams play in all the big cities and all the big markets. And as we've talked about recently here on the show, we've talked about arena sizes when it comes to AEW. And what I like about them is they book smaller venues, 5,000, 10,000, 12,000 seat arenas, to where the building looks mostly full. It looks sold out, and it looks better on television. And the vibe is better. The energy is better. The atmosphere is better in these smaller, more intimate shows. You guys have probably been to shows like this where you would agree. And here in WWE, you would think if they would just book smaller arenas, that the show would look much better. It would look like it was sold out, because it probably is if you only are running an 8,000 seat arena. But, your set takes up so much space and all of that. But, if you could just book some sort of a convention center or a theater or something like that and just put 8,000 people in there, it would look great for TV. But WWE still runs the major arenas, and they only utilize half or less of it. And we've been seeing that for years. So I am assuming that WWE, because since they've been running the big arenas again, probably like starting in like 96 and a little bit more consistently from there on into 97, and then of course 98, 99 and beyond, that's all they've been running. But prior to that, in the mid 90s, they were doing a lot of smaller arenas and only saving the big arenas for pay-per-views. So over the last like 25 years now, WWE has developed relationships with every major arena in the country, and they hold shows in those arenas multiple times per year. So I'm sure they have contracts and they have deals and relationships that they've built with these venues over time that benefits them. Because if for any reason the rent was astronomical, or if it was very, very expensive to rent these buildings, WWE would have been out of there years ago. We've seen that kind of with Madison Square Garden. They don't run a ton of shows there. Part of the reason is logistically, but also because it's expensive. So if for any reason these buildings were crazy expensive, then WWE, I think, would stop. But I think the deals that they have are beneficial. They're probably affordable, and it likely makes things a lot easier for scheduling. If you know all the buildings you're going to run for the most part in a year, it probably makes it really easy to book out your pay-per-views and your Raws in terms of knowing which venues are available and whatnot. But I think if they started running smaller venues, it would look much better on TV. But that means finding these venues, maintaining and creating relationships with these venues and all that stuff. And there's probably so much more complexities that go into this that I have no idea about. I would love a Fightful Select article on this, or anything that can detail or outline exactly what deals with venues entail and what's going on. And, are they locked up into these deals? Do they have to run a certain amount of shows and that's why they keep going back? What's the deal? I don't know. But I think based on WWE's attendance and based on the overall decline of pro wrestling, in an overall sense, we're not getting the ratings we used to get in the Attitude Era, far from it. And the attendance has kind of taken a dip too. Back in the day, I used to go to pay-per-views during the Attitude Era. They were legitimately sold out. So were Raws, so were Smackdowns. It's been a long time since we've seen those days. So I think If business is down and attendance is down, then you should run smaller buildings. Don't go back to the way WWE Raw was in 1994, where you had 55 fucking people in the audience sometimes, but just take one notch lower than where you are. That's all. Run college basketball stadiums instead of NBA basketball stadiums. Run smaller venues. I think it would look great on TV, but like I said, it's probably easier when you revisit these arenas multiple times a year. It's probably very easy for production. They just kind of have to do what they did last time they were there. Everybody knows it, the familiarity with it, and the talent too, in terms of driving and getting to the arena. Everybody knows where it is because they've been to these cities multiple times. You start changing things up, maybe it'll make it harder, but tough shit. It'll look a lot better on TV, and I think they should at least consider it. But there's got to be some contractual stuff with these venues that's preventing them from going smaller, because they certainly wouldn't just be eating, all of this money, and the expenses to run these big buildings just for the sake of running them. That is not the way WWE does things right now, especially the way they seem to be so bottom line driven. Doesn't seem like them just wasting money is something they do. If it wasn't profitable or beneficial anymore, they're going to change it. So that means it must be either profitable or beneficial or affordable for them to continue to run these venues. Otherwise, I don't see the fucking point of running a show that's so fucking empty. And on top of that, the San Francisco crowd tonight was not very enthusiastic. They were giving mild reactions for most everybody, and you could feel that right as the show opened with Drew McIntyre coming out. So Drew comes out, he's cutting a promo. The match with Big E is official. I wasn't sure if it was official when I was on the podcast on Saturday, but it is. I thought they would maybe make it official tonight. But that match is already set, so he comes out and says that he's going to be the champ, blah, blah, blah. Then Big E comes out. Big E's had a big week. He did the big intro for the Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder boxing match, which was just crazy the other night. He's been very busy, been doing a lot of things. I'm glad that he's out there as WWE champion doing promotional stuff and being able to do it. I was worried that his title victory was done for ratings and they were going to take the belt off of him and put it back on Lashley right away, but it looks like they're actually going with him and sending him out into the universe as their representative of their company, as their champion. That's awesome. So he's been busy, and that's why I think he's going to continue his run when it comes to the match with Drew at Crown Jewel. So he comes out, they start talking a little bit of smack to each other, but it's friendly smack like it's been, and then the Usos come out. Usos music hit, they come to the ring, and immediately I'm like, well, what the fuck are the Usos doing there? They were sent to Raw last week during the draft by Roman Reigns to ensure that Paul Heyman got them drafted to SmackDown. And if Heyman failed at that and the Usos were drafted to Raw, then Roman instructed the Usos to murder Paul Heyman right there in the arena. Luckily for them and Heyman, they were drafted to SmackDown. So then they turn around and show up on Raw again. Now, somebody pointed out to me on Twitter when I was like, why the fuck are the Usos there? They're like, well, they're there because they're Roman's family and they can do whatever they want. They can go wherever they want. And they said as much in the promo. Okay, that's fine. WWE got lucky with that one, that there's actually kind of a reason and explanation why they can jump to another show, because we're Roman's cousins and we are unfireable. We're bulletproof. Just look at our police records. If you need any more questions answered about that. So at least they had kind of a reason, but it was a lucky reason that wasn't intentional. The WWE fell ass backwards into, and they were like, oh, at least we can use that. What's Bianca Belair's excuse? What's Becky Lynch's excuse? Changes don't take effect until the 22nd, so why the fuck are they there? And worse than them, at least you can make the claim, well, they got drafted to Raw, they're just there early to help set up storylines, whatever, but then Sasha is there to set up the big tag match. Now, on paper, the match is great. You got 4 Hall of Famers in a tag match, Bianca and Sasha and Becky and Charlotte. Nothing against them, but doesn't that match alone just really undermine the importance of the draft when you have something like that 1 week after the draft? And according to what the Usos said here in the promo, when they start stirring the pot a bit between McIntyre and Big E, they bring up Roman Reigns. And they say that Roman could face one of these guys at Survivor Series. So they did kind of confirm here that Survivor Series is going to be the champion versus champion, brand versus brand thing, which I didn't even think they were going to do it this year, and they might do away with it. I think that they should, because I don't understand the point of fighting for brand supremacy at all when you're having the draft just a week ago and you have so much talent on each show, why would they even fight for it? That's crazy. So maybe it's just the champions thing that they're doing and they might not do the 5-on-5, although they probably will. So looks like Survivor Series will be following the normal format this year that it always does. And that is going to set up some potential fun matches for sure. So at least the Usos did confirm that. And then, of course, you know, they started stirring the pot a little bit, talking shit to these two, and you knew where it was going. The minute their music hit, you were like, oh, they're going to do what they did last week, tag match between Big E and Drew against the Usos. Eventually, it came down to that. They challenged Big E and Drew, and I think a little scuffle broke out as well, but that was going to be your main event, Drew and Big E against the Usos. After that, we got our first match of the night. It was a King of the Ring opening round match between Xavier Woods and Ricochet. So we're going to be keeping our eye on Xavier Woods. We've been talking about him because he's been politicking for the better part of 2 years for not only WWE to bring back the King of the Ring tournament, but to crown him as the king. So this has created a tiny bit of controversy because you have to ask yourself, you know, does Xavier deserve it simply because he's been politicking for it so hard? I say yes, he does. I don't want to see WWE give it to him just because he's been so vocal about it. But at the same time, if you're thinking about a talent that always delivers, that has charisma, that's great, and it's part of a super over act where the other two guys have had a lot of success, it is his time. It is his turn. They should give him something, and it is something that seems to be really important to him. But whenever you see something like that, WWE usually does the opposite and fuck that person over. And then you got Ricochet, on the other hand, who's never been treated really well based on how talented he is. He used to use the name King. So now you got Ricochet, who uses the name King, against Xavier, who really wants to be king. Who do you want to fuck over more, WWE? I guess they chose Ricochet. Xavier got the win, pinning him after the top rope elbow, which looked great. And he stared at the crown. He didn't touch it, put it on, which is good. He didn't go full Sami Zayn. But he's now advanced, and he's one step closer to getting that. Now, WWE, we're going to talk about it in a minute. I think they missed a huge opportunity here. I just got done saying last week that I never want to see the New Day break up, and I want to see them stay together forever. But that doesn't mean, you know, in a tournament setting or atmosphere or something like that, I'd be against seeing them wrestle. And I think they missed a big opportunity here going Xavier and Kofi in the semifinals, especially with Kofi being a former WWE champion, being able to do the honors for his friend like that, I think would be much better than an Xavier and Jinder showdown. But that's what we're getting next week. We'll talk about the next King of the Ring match here later on. We get Riddle and Orton backstage. Riddle's got a match later on, one-on-one against Omas, and he's just doing his typical rambling shit. I started to try to write down what he was saying, and I'm like, what's the point? What is the point? He was just rambling his nuts off. It meant very little, so didn't really pay much attention to what he said. Then we get a tag match between Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander taking on Mustafa Ali and Mansoor. This was a very quick match. You blink and you missed it. I walked out of the room, came back, and Cedric was pinning Ali, and that was the end of it. And later on backstage, we would see a little bit more between these two. After the match, Ali would shove Mansoor down, very frustrated, called him a loser, and left the ring, and they would mix it up a bit later on backstage. Then we get our Queen's Crown opening round match on the Raw side between Shayna Baszler and Dana Brooke. They are running this one back from last week, which is ludicrous because Shayna beat Dana in about a minute last week, and WWE has made this Queen's Crown tournament a complete and total utter joke. My God, this is something that they've tossed around and thought about for 2 years now. There's been rumblings of it. When they finally made the announcement, they're acting like it's going to be the biggest, this big grand thing, and then they just slap 8 random women in the tournament, and so far, all of the matches have been under 2 minutes long, or 2 minutes long, something like that, the two that we saw on SmackDown. Here, Shayna Baszler chokes out Dana Brooke in 1 minute and 22 seconds. So out of the 3 Queen's Crown tournament matches we've had so far, it's been a grand total of about 7 minutes of in-ring time. We would get another match later with Natalya and Doudrop that I think would go 3 minutes. But so far, I mean, I can't believe what a joke this is, because on the men's side, it's not so much. On the men's side, it does feel like there's something to be won here. Cesaro and Finn Balor had a hell of a match on SmackDown. They were given time to have a match. Xavier here and Ricochet had a good one. Even though Kofi lost, Kofi and Jinder didn't have a bad one either. These matches are half decent, so why is one tournament being treated like it's very, very important and the other one is being treated like it's 2007 Divas matches? Because that's what it feels like. Back in those days, remember those days of Kelly and all them? You know, those matches would literally match a minute and a half, minute, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever. They weren't long at all, and I think that the women here in this tournament deserve a lot better than that. And they just didn't they put a lot of thought into making the tournament and doing the announcement, but they may put no thought into the tournament itself in terms of, who could really benefit from this, and how could we use some of these matches to get them over? And instead they're just throwing them out there for 2 minutes and calling it a day. It doesn't mean shit. So it's just disappointing. I just wish that the first time they do a Queen's Crown tournament, it would be a little bit more significant than this. So in my mind here, the only thing that can rectify this or to make this even slightly worth it is if Shayna Baszler just beats everybody in a minute and a half. Every person she gets in the ring with, she chokes out in a minute and 22 seconds or less, on her way to the crown. However, with this long line of recent enemies she's been making by snapping people's arms in stairs, I worry that Nia Jax or Eva Marie or somebody like that could come back and cost her the crown either in the finals or in the semifinals, which she will have next week against one of these enemies, Doudrop. So we'll find out, but I think that's the only thing that would make it worth it for me. I don't have any interest in seeing any woman in the current field that's left win the Queen's Crown other than Shayna Baszler. Carmella is very likely if it's not Shayna, but I think it should just be Shayna. She should just murder everybody. That's what I want to see. After that, we got the Riddle versus Omas match. Riddle gets on the mic talking to Omas. He mentions the Brogurt from a few weeks back. Brogurt, it just sounds gross. And talks about how stacked and jacked Omas looks and rambles and rambles and rambles. Basically, he's trying to distract Omas. He thinks that Randy Orton's going to jump in the ring and attack. And he goes, "Randy, now!" And then Randy doesn't come out. And he's like, classic Randy. Finally, AJ gets just fed up with this shit. And he demands the match starts because the referee is just sitting there allowing this chatter to take place without ringing the bell. And AJ finally insists that the match starts. It does. Omas makes pretty quick work of Riddle, picks him up and slams him and pins him, I believe, right? And that's when AJ decides to continue the attack after the bell. He gets on the mic and he tells Omas to hit Riddle with a roundhouse kick that he learned in like second grade karate class or something. So Omas lines up Riddle and he hits him with a pretty shitty looking kick. It wasn't great. Riddle's hands were in his face and his foot went way over his head. Did not look good. But for the purposes of the segment they were doing, they had to show the replay because that was just what was in the script. So they had to show a replay not once but twice of the shitty looking kick on the Tron, which I got a kick out of, once in real time and once in slow motion. But even in slow motion, you still have the camera shake and the cut that kind of disguises how bad the kick really looked. But ridiculous kind of segment there. But anyway, after that, that's when Randy Orton's music hits. They start staring at the front, and Orton slithers in the ring and nails AJ with the RKO. So that whole issue continues, and I believe, they are set for the tag match at Crown Jewel. So that match is set as well. So anyway, that's what happened there. Kind of a funny segment. I did enjoy this backstage with the WWE champion and Drew McIntyre. They're talking about their match later on with the Usos. They still have a little bit of tension because of what went down earlier in the ring, but they kind of agree to put that aside for now to fight this common enemy, and they do the long, like it reminded me of the Mega Powers handshake on Saturday Night's Main Event back in '87 when they first hooked up, and the big hands come together and they agree to kind of just let it all go. We're going to go out there and kick ass tonight, and we'll see each other at Crown Jewel, a little fist bump or whatever. All right, I'll see you out there kind of thing. I'm like, okay, they're going to try. So we'll see how that would work out in the main event later. Then we get Bobby Lashley coming to the ring to cut a promo about Goldberg last week, who laid down the challenge for Crown Jewel, so that match is on. And Lashley called Goldberg out for threatening to kill him and all that stuff and says, "You're not going to do it. I'm going to beat the shit out of you," and blah, blah, blah. And I am so incredibly nervous and scared shitless of this match. Bobby Lashley doesn't have the title anymore. He injured Goldberg's kid. So you feel like Goldberg beating Lashley here is probably what's going to happen. I would rather do anything. I would rather watch Two Girls, One Cup while eating a bowl of warm pudding than watch Goldberg wrestle in Saudi Arabia. It is always nothing but a disaster. The match with The Undertaker, the match with The Fiend. Why would you do this to us again? I feel horrible for Bobby Lashley that he has to even go through this fucking match and probably put Grandpa over here. I'm just not excited for this match because I don't think it's going to end any way but bad. I mean, the only good thing that can come out of this is Bobby Lashley beating Goldberg, but is that what WWE would really do? Would Goldberg even agree? I guess money talks. It's a match in Saudi Arabia. You're paying me God knows what. I'll job to whoever you want. But would you really run an angle where Lashley not only beats Goldberg to where he can't continue the match at SummerSlam, but then beats up his kid, and then when Goldberg tries to stand up and man up to Lashley to defend his kid, Lashley beats him again? Is that what Goldberg would do? Unless he's retiring, I don't think so. So I just worry that since there's no title on the line and there's no threat of this fucker becoming champion again, he's probably just going to beat Lashley, and that's going to bum me the fuck out, man. They did a really good job, and they worked hard to establish Lashley as a monster. We still want to see a future match between Lashley and Brock. A loss to Goldberg here is going to make that match a little bit, that potential future match between those two, just a little bit less meaningful, I feel, if he's losing here to Goldberg. But knowing WWE, he fucking is, and that's just what's going to happen. So I'm sure you're going to get a very, very happy good mic work on the Day of Crown Jewel as we're talking about this show when we get to that match. I'm sure I'll just have wonderful things to say. I am scared. After that, we get a Sasha Banks promo backstage. Now, all of the women involved in the tag match later on, Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte, would all get these little backstage promos where they all said mostly the same shit that they've been saying. And I love watching women's wrestlers cut promos. Sasha, I think, is the worst offender, but whenever they get to the shit-talking part of their promo, they start blinking their eyes real fast. You ever notice that? Kind of shaking their head a little bit? And I'm just going to It's just so funny. They all do it, but Sasha is like the worst offender. And the men have the same problem in other ways. Like back in the day, everybody had to say, let me tell you something. Like, why does everybody have to say, let me tell you something before they tell you something? And the women have this blinking thing that they all do. It cracks me up. Watch for it in promos. You'll laugh your ass off. After that, we get Austin Theory taking on Jeff Hardy. Now, I've been worried about WWE and what they're going to do with Austin Theory on the main roster because he was kind of getting to be pretty entertaining in NXT. I thought he was doing a really good job. He was cracking me the fuck up. But I was worried, well, that's all going to be undone when he gets to the main roster. Vince isn't going to understand or get what he was even doing in the way. So I was a little worried. But then when I see the match graphic for Hardy and Theory and that pose that Theory is doing with that grin, I'm like, okay, maybe they are going to keep him kind of that goofball. Now, and they kind of did, because during the match, I think he's got Jeff locked in like a chin lock or something, and then the 24/7 mob comes out. Reggie is chased by all these yahoos, including R-Truth, and they're all getting in the ring, running through the ring while Theory has got this hold on Jeff, and he's screaming, what are you doing? What are you doing? I actually got a kick out of that. So Austin Theory may not be so doomed on the main roster. Hopefully they will tap into some of the funny things he can do, and that was pretty funny when he was yelling at those guys to get out of the ing. And he came face-to-face, I believe, with R-Truth there for a minute as well. All of the 24/7 guys get out of there. Reggie runs away. You get Twist of Fate on Theory by Jeff Hardy. He goes up to the top for the Swanton Bomb, misses. Theory rolls him up with a handful of tights for the win and beats Jeff Hardy. So I kind of thought they were going to do with Austin what they did with Karrion Kross and have Hardy beat him in his opener, but Theory was able to hold the tire. I guess there's no trunks. Hold the jeans or whatever those pants are that Hardy is wearing and get the win. Now, Hardy, of course, is heading over to SmackDown in the draft. He's been drafted over there. He did reference in a promo last week that we could be seeing, what is that character? Help me out. Willow the Wisp or what the fuck? Whatever that thing is, he is probably going to bring to SmackDown. So that's kind of interesting, unless he cut the promo and then WWE has dropped it. But I think based on what he said last week, that's possible. After that, we get the other King of the Ring opening round men's match between Kofi, Kingston, and Jinder Mahal. Huge missed opportunity here. This thing had Kofi written all over it. I was hoping it would be Kofi and Xavier in a really fun. You could have booked this match in the main event next week on Raw and have these two guys battle it out, give them 25 good minutes in there, have Kofi put them over, little handshake at the end, maybe even Big E coming out and saying, hey, I'm proud of both of you guys, let's just, remember that we're together kind of thing, and send Xavier Woods off into the finals. I think that would have been great. And I've been talking about the New Day recently, how I never really want them to break up ever, but I do think in the right situation, you could have a match between the two. I know back in the Shield days, whatever year they did the Survivor Series tournament for the title, wasn't it Roman and Ambrose in the finals? And the Shield stayed together, right? Or no, maybe they just stayed friends. They weren't the Shield anymore, but they were still bros kind of thing. So it could be a similar situation there where you just have to face each other in the finals. It doesn't lead to anything. You could even tease or plant some seeds for a reason to break up the New Day in the future, but then never do it. I think you could still do a Kofi and Xavier match without harming the solidarity of the New Day, in my opinion. But God forbid we have something intriguing on Monday Night Raw. Can't have that. And Jinder might be on his way to the crown. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And Jinder Mahal is actually the exact type of guy that I expect, or the exact type of heel that is kind of made for this stupid crown shit. You know what I mean? So I really hope we're not going to see King Jinder at the end of this thing, but we might. We got Becky. It was Becky's turn to do her little backstage promo next, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to win. And then we get Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks against Becky and Charlotte. This match was going to be tough to pull off. They were referencing that all night long because the word coexist loves to be tossed around in WWE a lot, way too much, a lot. All these women are at odds with each other, and Charlotte is probably in the worst position here because the other three have got a triple threat match for the title at Crown Jewel. Charlotte's kind of the odd woman out here, and she's got to be put in the middle of this shit, and she's got every reason in kayfabe to be pissed and should have a gripe and should have an axe to grind with Sonya and Adam Pearce saying, look, I'm your champion. I'm your poster child. You are putting your star in a very dangerous position. If I get in the middle of these three women, I could get seriously hurt. And you don't want to lose. You don't want to lose your new SmackDown superstar or whatever. So you'd think that Charlotte's going to be pretty annoyed at this. And the match does not take long to break down. Breaks down right away. The partners are fighting each other. Adam and Sonya get pissed. They come out. I mean, it's like a pull-apart brawl on the outside of the ring. Everybody's just tearing each other's hair out. Adam and Sonya come out to the stage. They're pissed. They say it's not going to happen like that. They're going to restart the match, and I believe they even go to a commercial, and then we come back and they try to do it again. In the end, it still ends in a no contest. The ref calls for the bell after Bianca and Sasha get into it again, and Bianca nails Sasha, slams her on the turnbuckle or something, and she kind of goes down. Referee just has to call for it, so we get a no contest anyway. Brawl continues after the bell. Becky escapes a KOD. We get a backstabber to Bianca Belair from Sasha, and then Becky nails Sasha with her one-arm thing that she does or whatever. So Becky kind of stands tall after that, and that match was a complete mess, and it was advertised for a lot of days, and we didn't get anything out of it, just a whole lot of brawling and fucking nonsense. So that match was what it was, but it was definitely star-studded. We get another King of the Ring match. This is the final opening round match for the women. Doudrop taking on Natalya, and Doudrop and Natalya, congratulations, you have doubled the time of the average Queen's Crown tournament match here, going about 3 minutes, with Doudrop actually winning with a roll-up. And Doudrop will be going on now to the semifinals to take on Shayna Baszler, who she had the run-in with last week. And on the other side, we'll see on Friday, I guess we're going to see who Carmella take on Zelina Vega. So that's our final four, I believe, right? Carmella, help me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. Carmella, Zelina on SmackDown, Doudrop, and who the fuck else? Who else? Doudrop and, Shayna. Doudrop and Shayna. So hopefully Shayna will beat Doudrop, although Eva Marie, like whose side would Eva Marie be on next week? I can't believe we're even talking about this. But next week in Shayna versus Doudrop, if Eva comes out to run in, who does she attack? She's kind of pissed at both of them right now, isn't she? And Doudrop even came out to save Dana Brooke the previous week. So Maybe we could see a reuniting of Eva Marie and Doudrop, and now they're baby faces together. Let's hope not. We'll find out next week. After that, I didn't catch much of what was going on. This fucking segment of crazy. We had Nikki ASH and Rhea Ripley approaching or coming upon Morrison, who's sitting up on the crates, and he's meditating or something. So they say a few things to him. I don't know what, but they kind of walk on, and he's just meditating. So anyway, that happened. None of them had matches tonight. After that, we go backstage to Ali berating Mansoor, getting in his face some more, still pissed off about the loss earlier on, calls him a loser and whatnot, and just completely shits on him. And Mansoor's face, he's literally about to cry. Ali storms off, and then whatever that announcer's name, that crab-walking fella, he comes in from the side trying to interview Mansoor after he just got his face shit on by Ali, and he can't even get a word out. Ali comes back and attacks Mansoor and just beats the shit out of him backstage. So it looks like their alliance is over. I kind of wanted to see the two of them form a tag team and just be a tag team in the tag team division. They look good together. They're both good athletes. Neither one of them are doing shit individually, and Ali has never been able to figure it out. It's not his fault, but he had a chance to be in that elimination chamber. He got injured. Then they were going to bring him in as the Hacker, and they dropped that. Then they brought him in as Retribution, and that went like shit. Then they resurrected the Hacker stuff, only to drop that, only to break up Retribution. The poor guy cannot catch a break. Now they pair him with Mansoor. Lasts about 3 weeks. Now they're broken up. So I think it would have been good for him just to chill there in the tag team with Mansoor for a while and maybe even win the titles or something. But we'll see if that attack is permanent. I would assume it is. If somebody beats my ass like that, I'm not going to be your friend again. But Mansoor's also a huge, giant wuss, so maybe he will allow himself to be abused like this by Ali and stay with him, and then they can find a common ground and get on the same page. I don't know. But it looks like that tag team that was about to be a thing is no longer a thing. And that leaves us with the main event, big, meaty men slapping meat. Big E and Drew McIntyre taking on the Usos. Of course, they did here in this match what I expected them to do last week and didn't, and that is, of course, have a lot of dissension, miscommunication, and just a real lack of cooperation from the baby faces because they have a big title match coming up in just a week at Crown Jewel. So it's Usos, Big E, and Drew. And, of course, we get the miscommunication. Big E accidentally hits Drew McIntyre. He goes flying out of the ring. And then Big E nails one of the Usos, and he's about to get the win. The referee's about to count 1, 2, 3. And Drew McIntyre pulls Big E out of the ring. And, of course, Big E says, it was an accident, man. And then the brawl is on. They start kicking the shit out of each other. They brawl over by the announce tables. And then the Usos do a double dive over the top rope onto them and start working over Big E and McIntyre together. Big E and McIntyre fight back. They dispose of the Usos. They find themselves back in the ring where they continue to brawl some more. Drew at this point is busted open. I think he took a post shot or something, but it looked hard way because as the show went off the air, you got a close-up of his forehead, and he looked like he got a legitimate bump on his head there. So the extra blood, I think, helped with the intensity of this match because both of these guys are two baby faces. So if you have a little bit more intensity, a little bit more hatred or animosity between these two, that should make the match a little bit better. And in the end, Big E goes for the big ending. McIntyre gets off, shoves him, nails him with a claymore, and stands tall. And I didn't catch the end if he picked up the belt or not. A lot of times in this situation, the person that does the beating down holds up the title, so he may or may not have done that. But he got the last word on Big E here. I don't know. This feels like they would do a contract signing or something next week if they haven't signed this contract already. That feels like that could be our segment next week for Raw. Big E and McIntyre contract signing. Look out for that. Otherwise, I don't know what you're going to do next week. Just have them both in the ring cutting a promo and brawl again. I suppose that's possible, but I think contract signing at this point seems likely. And that was the end of Monday Night Raw. So that was kind of your Raw in a nutshell. It didn't take me a terrible amount of time to go through that, but when you read through it, and on paper it wasn't all bad, and there were a couple of matches on here and a couple of disappointing outcomes. I'm a little bit bummed out that Mansoor and Ali don't appear like they're going to be continuing their tag team. I don't think Jinder beating Kofi was the right call, and now I'm really worried this fucker's going to win the whole damn crown. Lashley talking about Goldberg, who cares? and a lot of just lackluster stuff. But the King and Queens tournament continued. Like I said, happy about Xavier, not so much about Jinder Mahal. And the only short match in the women's tournament that I've enjoyed has been Shayna Baszler, because she should be winning her matches short. All the other ones should be given a little bit more time, and you should put forth some effort to make this tournament as important as you are making it sound in all your promo packages and shit. It's the execution of it that's so poor and so frustrating with WWE. But there you have it. That's your Monday Night Raw. I'll cruise over here to the chat and see what you guys have to say. Doesn't look like the audience night's going to be terribly huge, so we won't hang out too long. But we'll see what you guys have to say. And if you have anything to add about tonight's episode. A lot of people kind of think Jinder is winning it. I want to thank Andy Uriel for the $2. I moved from Suplex City to Deer Shit, Alabama. Nice. How is the Chinese food down there? Is it any good? I'm always looking for a place with good Chinese food. Yeah, I think Apollo Crews and Commander Aziz challenging for the tag team titles is very possible. Let's run through the Crown Jewel card, too. Here's what we got, at least according to WWE.com, which is only 6 matches. I thought we had more than this. But anyway, here's what we got. Of course, we have, at the top, Roman Reigns defending the Universal title against Brock Lesnar. We've got Big E defending the WWE title against Drew McIntyre. Goldberg taking on Bobby Lashley in a no-holds-barred match that is just scaring me shitless when I'm looking at it. Edge versus Seth Rollins in the Hell in the Cell is probably going to be your show stealer there. That's going to be great stuff. SmackDown Women's title on the line with Becky Lynch defending against Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks in a triple threat match. And the Raw tag team titles are on the line. RK Bro taking on AJ and Omas. So far, and at least right now, no match for Charlotte. Doesn't look like she's going to have one. Doesn't look like she's even going to make the trip over there. So you have to wonder when the smoke clears at Crown Jewel. Becky, I'm going to assume, is going to emerge as champion here. I'm not changing the title here unless WWE just wants to do this thing where they have a women's championship change hands in Saudi Arabia just so they can say it happened. Other than that, I don't want to see Becky drop the title because I want to see her and Bianca resume their feud on Raw, and hopefully with it culminating with a victory over Becky Lynch by Bianca Belair. And Becky coming out of this match as champion would probably ensure another month or two long run for her, because at Survivor Series, she's probably going to be taking on the other champion, which means you could prolong the inevitable big Becky and Bianca blow-off with Bianca winning the title back. That's where I'm hoping we get here. So I want to see Becky keep the title, and what I think they're going to do is what they did with the New Day and the Street Profits and just have Becky and Charlotte swap titles, which I fucking hate. But at this point is probably your best option rather than trying to switch the titles before the draft changes take effect, trying to get, the Raw title off of Charlotte and onto a Raw person and the SmackDown title off of Becky onto a SmackDown person. I would rather not even make it that difficult. Just do the belt switch. It's dumb, but whatever. Because basically I'm thinking more along the lines of Bianca. I just think that after everything that she's done this year, big WrestleMania, dropping the belt to Becky Lynch at SummerSlam, she has got to beat her. She's got to beat her, and she's got to beat her clean, because that is still going to be a really big deal. You got to remember, Becky really hasn't technically lost in like 2 years or more, maybe, whatever it's been now. So when she does go down, I'd rather it not be in a triple threat match, at Crown Jewel. I'd rather it be one-on-one, woman-o, e-woman-o, with Becky and Bianca KODs her, puts her down, wins the title. Becky does the honors, and that's the way it should be. And you do that at the December pay-per-view. You could do it. That'll probably be TLC. So I suppose you could do a TLC match between the two. Seems likely at this point. You've already done several matches between them. So you might do Becky versus Bianca in a TLC match, and then Bianca can win the title. That would be a great moment when she retrieves the belt from the top, and she can have that moment. And it also saves Becky from being pinned. And she's now lost the title, but still is on a 2-year plus no pin, no submit streak, unless they've beat her in a tag. Champions get pinned all the time, but I don't think Becky's taken any sort of a loss like that. So if you do take the title off of her in a ladder match style. I still think it's a way of having a big statement win for Bianca while being able to preserve this no pin streak of Becky. That might be the direction they go. I don't know. But then again, a KOD and a pin 1, 2, 3 in the ring is also would probably be the most appropriate in terms of those two. But there's lots they could do. I don't think that's going to affect Shayna Baszler at all. I know Sami Zayn is probably not going over there, but I don't think it should have anything to do with Shayna Baszler, as far as I know. Yeah, I know. I'm worried about Jinder Mahal too, but I think that's. I think it's still possible that he doesn't win because we do have some great people left in that tournament, and Finn Balor and stuff. I'd love to see the Prince become the king. That would be pretty fucking cool. Be cool to see the Demon King also be the king. What if the Demon came out wearing the King of the Ring crown? That would be interesting. Be weird, but also fun and interesting. Yeah, I think. Well, I just think the Raiders just told Gruden that he has to resign. So technically, it is a firing, but it's going to go down as a resignation. He resigned because he knew he couldn't, he couldn't stay there. So it's all in the wording, I guess. All right. Well, I think I am going to get out of here. Orton or Riddle, who do you think is turning heel? I'd like the idea of Riddle going heel just as a swerve. I mean, you would think just based on everything these guys are saying to each other that Orton is just going to get fed up one of these days with Riddle, and he's just going to annihilate him. But hell, it might be Riddle because we have seen Randy Orton. He still acts a bit disinterested. He still acts a little bit annoyed with Riddle from time to time. And eventually, this might get to Riddle. Like, man, I love you. I'm kissing your ass, and you let me down time and time again. Eventually, he might see that, get upset, and go heel. I don't know. He's just such a funny babyface. I don't know if I can handle him being heel, but he might. Oh, I didn't know about Darren Young. I wasn't aware of Darren Young. He's been there since they've been doing the Saudi shows? Seems like he's been gone for a while. Doesn't seem like the Saudi shows have been going on that long. How many years have they been doing these things? And how many years has Darren Young been gone? Yeah, I don't know what it was that unearthed these emails with Gruden, but apparently it was they were investigating the Washington football team and came across a bunch of them. Man, you would think if you got shit like that to say, you'd verbally say that, not type it down and leave a trail of it. Jesus Christ. Interesting developments all the time in sports, I'll tell you. Yep. The lazy can they coexist stuff is just getting really old. I don't think the fans, I mean, they're professionals. They should be able to easily coexist. This should not even be a question. Like you got to go out there and do it. Wouldn't the Raw after Crown Jewel, they would have Rock in the Raw plans for Survivor Series? I don't know what Rock's going to do. We've heard stories of him being available for Survivor Series. He might just be there. I don't think he's going to be there to wrestle. I think he just might be there as a personality, and they can just work him in anywhere. But if they are going to announce him, and that is a done deal, and they have worked it out, you would think that they're going to hit that with us as soon as they possibly can. And right after Crown Jewel might be the time for that, unless they want to bring him in as a surprise or wait, another week. I don't know. But seeing Rock at Survivor Series would be pretty awesome. So I hope he's there. Yeah, I remember Gruden's brother was the Washington coach. So yeah, that sucks that that got found out because that fucked his deal up. Boy, those Las Vegas Raiders are off to a great start, aren't they? My God. No, the King of the Ring winner is not always a face. Or I'm sorry, not always a heel. The very first one was a face. What are you talking about? Bret Hart. Ken Shamrock won it in like 98. Edge won it as a babyface. There's been lots of babyface winners. I think a gimmick, though, as obnoxious as the King of the Ring is generally better on heels just because it's so stupid. Marcus the Entertainer, thanks, man, for the $5. If Bret didn't leave, would it have been Austin versus Bret at WrestleMania 14 in a rematch? We just talked about that like last week. I say yes. It would have been hard. Shawn would have still been in the middle there, and that would have been tough to. There would have been so much politics going on. Who knows what match they would have been able to work out for WrestleMania 14? But if the plan was to launch Austin, that is the match I would have gone with, just based on the history between Bret and Austin. And Bret has won all of their previous encounters. Having Bret put him over now, that would be a big statement, and I think it would have been every bit as big as when or bigger, is when Austin beat Shawn, because there's a bigger story with Bret. He never had much of a story with Shawn. They didn't really interact. Had a couple of matches in 96, but nothing major. And, of course, they had their issue in 97, in the summertime. But Bret, there was so much more meat on that bone with the submission match and the WrestleMania match they had the year before. 1 year later, coming full circle and, doing the rematch, and this time winning, this time in the main event, this time for a much bigger prize at stake. The WWE title would have been a great way for Austin to be launched. But it all worked out. He was so ridiculously over. He could have gone in there and wrestled a fucking piano. As long as he won the title, the fans would not have cared. So that would have been a good match, though. Bret and Austin, main event. Good stuff. I don't think Billy Gunn was a babyface, dude. Billy Gunn was a heel. I was at that King of the Ring in 99. I was there. Billy Gunn, remember, it was right after he feuded with The Rock, and The Rock cut that promo. God, Bob, but my name's Billy. Remember that? That was definitely heel Billy Gunn. Rock buried his ass, didn't he? My God. I would have done Shawn versus Triple H with China underneath. There's a joke in there somewhere. Yeah, Michaels and Triple H could have had, if they could have gotten it done in time. Triple H was still considered, though, at that time, late 97, early 98, still mid-card, still European title. I feel like they were like a year away from that match really being something to see. And plus DX wasn't even around very long. DX formed in like September. I wouldn't have been ready to see them face after 4 months of DX, 5 months of DX, or whatever it is. I would do it like if Shawn never got hurt the following year. Do it like that. Right on, Michael. Are you going to go in New York or Las Vegas? Giants Raiders. Anyway. Well, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here tonight since nobody is here really talking in the chat except just us. So we'll call it a night and chalk this Raw up to a very, very uninteresting one because, man, oh, man. Y'all have a really good next couple of days. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to be back because there is no Dynamite on Wednesday, so no watch along. But I'll have a couple of things up on the channel between now and then. And it looks like this week's Winged Eagle podcast isn't coming until Sunday. So could be a little bit of a gap in videos this week, but I'll be getting up here to do something. And if anything major happens, big news story drops, I'll come up. We'll talk about it, and we will be here for sure. So you guys have a great rest of your night. Thanks for being here, and I will talk to y'all real soon.